Hey, this is Paige Ruderman, and this is the So Rude podcast. Welcome to the show. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the So Rude podcast. I'm Paige Ruderman, and I am so excited to welcome a special guest to the show. Emily Kaiser is a powerhouse in the Nashville music scene. Currently a day-to-day manager at Showdown Management, she works with artists like Sam Tinnesz and UNSECRET and serves as the label coordinator for Tinman Entertainment. Her career has seen her cross paths with global acts like Maroon 5 and Breaking Benjamin, and she has spent years mastering the worlds of artist operations and marketing. I actually met Emily at a mutual friend's birthday party shortly after I moved to town. I've watched her career explode since then, and I'm so excited to finally dig into her journey. Today, I can't wait to explore her move to Nashville, what it's actually like to be an artist manager, and her advice for those breaking into the business. Emily, welcome to the So Rude podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Paige. Appreciate it.
Of course. And honestly, it's so cool to have you on the show because, as I mentioned, we met at Michelle's birthday party
Yeah.
shortly after I moved to Nashville. And I remember even then, like, you already had your boots on the ground, you were established, and I was still figuring out, like, where things are located.
I'm just faking it, honestly. I'm still figuring it out. So I appreciate that it makes it seem that way for sure.
But even like seeing where you were then and where you've, grown in the last 3+ years, like, is truly incredible. And I
Thank
want to go
you.
back to the beginning. You share that you grew up in a small town in Illinois.
Yes.
Was music always the big plan? Was there like this moment? I just would love to hear from you, like, where did it all start?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've always loved music. Like, I've always loved music, but I never really wanted to be like the performer. Like, I played flute in high school band, but that's like as far as I went as far as performance goes. So I've always loved like the background of music, but it wasn't until I would say like junior year of high school, I think, is when I first realized like, oh, this can be a career. And it was actually when I went to, there used to be this Christian festival called Agape Fest in Greenville, Illinois at Greenville College, now Greenville University. So I went there just for like the festival. And as I was waiting in line to meet like one of my favorite bands, one of my brother's friends who was a student at the school was telling me all about like music management, the music business program, and all these different jobs that I could get in music without having to be a performer. And that was probably the pivotal turning point for me to be like, okay, I'm going to go to Greenville and I'm going to study music business. And so that's when I started kind of switching my mind because before that I was kind of just thought maybe business. At one point, I thought I wanted to go into fashion, which I would have never made it in that for sure. But so I was kind of just like trying to explore a lot of things and was kind of lost before that. But that moment is when I was like, oh, there's actually a degree for this, and I could go towards music business at Greenville. So that's what I did once I graduated high school. I went to Greenville, and that's kind of where the whole journey started.
That is so interesting and so great that you cross paths with someone who could like open up this world of, hey, did you even know that this existed? Because for many people, it's not like we're born with a binder of here's every job you could ever have as an adult.
Exactly.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And it's crazy because we did grow up in a super small town. And I would say that I didn't know anybody else kind of in that field besides like my brother's acquaintance. And so hearing his story and how he now is like in I think he's a lawyer now, for different music and artists and stuff like that. So it was just really cool to hear from him and hear his experience that somebody from my small town was out there chasing it too. And now he lives in LA and he's in the entertainment business as well. So it's just cool to see that in Greenville is a super small college as well. And so the fact that they offered music business and it was only an hour and a half from my hometown, it's a very rare for that, I feel like, but it felt right. So
And thanks for sharing. I was going to ask, like, is Greenville a school known for this program, or like how prevalent was music in the hometown? It sounds like it was actually On the smaller side.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely like I grew up in Freeburg, Illinois, so that was very much very small, not so much music there. I mean, there was a few bands in high school, but they were just like fun. Nobody was really pursuing it. A few people have since then. But I would say Greenville specifically was definitely a very big music school. The music business program was smaller, but it was like very much hands-on, which was really nice. And that's what made it so like special because it was the students were running the Christian festival, the students were doing all the bookings and the bands and everything. There was a lot of worship bands and there was a lot of just like bands trying to make it, and there was singer and songwriting classes, production classes, things like that. And since then it's changed. The music business program at that school doesn't necessarily isn't the same anymore, but during my time there it was definitely very much a blossoming degree and blossoming like industry.
And I remember from your bio, you had shared that in your early years in college or throughout your college experience, you actually interned with a band called Anthem Lights.
Yeah.
Everything from like, it sounds like, operations of the band, like booking, things like that. How did that come about? Like, was this because you were in this program and these were other students, or like, I'd love to hear more about how that happened.
Yeah, so it was really funny. So going back, I should go back and mention too that the band I was trying to meet when I was at Agape Fest, my very first time going to Greenville, was one of my favorite bands, and it was 10th Avenue North, who
Okay.
um, jumping ahead, Showdown Management worked for them, so I got to work with them. But it was funny because my brother's friend cut me off and was like, "Hey, they have to get back on the road. You won't be
Mhm.
meeting them." And I was like crushed. But then my other favorite band was Anthem Lights at the time. And if you would have asked high school Emily, like, if she could work for any band, who would it be? I would have said like 10th Avenue North or Anthem Lights. And so Anthem Lights wasn't known to be a touring band. They were mostly YouTube, social media, kind of lots of covers. They had some original music as well, but I became a fan for, like in high school from them, and when I was in college, they announced that they were going to be performing at my sister's college, SIUE, and that was rare because they didn't perform much, but they were going to be performing at the family weekend, which I was already going to be going to visit my sister. So I had a plan that after the show, I was just going to ask them if they needed an intern. So I purposely like went to the very back of the line because they were like meeting every person there because it was a smaller show, like not many people were there for the family show. So I waited in the back of the line with my sister and I made her act like the crazy fan. I was like, you have to get this signed. You have to do this. I have to be the professional one here. So she got everything signed just in case. Then I was like, oh, by the way, do you guys need an intern for the summer? And they were like, they all looked shocked. They're like, oh my gosh, yeah, our intern actually just left and we were just talking about how we needed another one. Like, here's an email to reach out to and we'll be in touch. So I reached out to them, set up a phone call, and they basically didn't even ask me that many questions, which was so crazy to me. I thought I was being interviewed, and it was basically like, when can you start? And how early can you get to Nashville? Do you have a place to stay? So I quickly figured it all out. I had never been to Nashville before. Um, and I just decided I was going to intern for this band, and they said that they felt like I was qualified since I asked for it. So, yes.
Fair.
Yes. So I moved to Nashville during one summer, during I think I was sophomore or junior in college, one of the in between the summers. And I moved to Nashville just for the summer months, and I was their like personal intern. So they were a very different band where like they were in an office daily together. Like they still had a management company outside of that, but they also had their own office as a band where they were constantly creating ideas, doing marketing, videos, very much social media. So I helped them a lot with social media ideas, help with office admin, marketing, etc. So I was hands-on with the band every day for a full summer. And then after I graduated college, I ended up working for them part-time as well.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Yes.
And I'm so
All
excited to dig
over
into
the
this.
place, but yeah.
First off, shout out sisters that are going to be the backbone of like, I need all of this signed. Please don't let
Seriously.
me,
Yes.
just in case they say no,
I'm
we
like,
still got
you're the
this.
fan. I'm here for business. Yes.
Shout out sisters.
Yes.
But also so cool for you advocating for yourself and kind of just like pitching yourself to a group saying like, are you looking for someone? And I'm
Yeah.
interested. And um, I love that they're basically like, so are you moving to Nashville? Like, are we getting going or not?
This is crazy. I was like, looking back, they're some of my best friends now. I asked them, I was like, why did you guys trust me to be your intern? They're like, we figured what could go wrong. I'm like, I could have been a crazy, like, stalker fan. Like, you lucked out. I hit it.
Like, you're very lucky I was as normal as I am. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I was like, that could have gone bad. Luckily, I suppressed all of it, you know?
Oh my gosh. And was that your first time spending time in Nashville? Because that's also
Yeah.
a huge move, picking up for the summer 2, 3 months in a new city.
Yes. Yeah, I had never been to Nashville until I started my internship. Like I hadn't even visited before. So and it was about 5 hours from my hometown. So I drove to Nashville. I lived with people I had met at another concert. And they knew that I needed housing. And so, yeah, I just started from there, but it was all completely new to me for sure.
And you shared that this was a summer between either sophomore and junior or junior and
Yes,
senior year.
sophomore and junior year.
Sophomore
Now
and
that,
junior year.
yes.
How different was the day to day compared to classes? Because at this point in time, you've now taken 2 years of education to get into the music business. And now you're basically plopped into a role where you're like 100% hands on. Like, was it the same? Were there moments that you were like, oh yeah, now I see what they were talking about? Or you were like, I don't think I knew what I was getting into before this
Yeah.
moment?
I think it was a little bit of both, to be honest. I definitely, with marketing, I had to look back at a lot of my classes and be like, okay, how can I use the things I learned directly? Because the band let me have as much reign as I wanted to just come up with ideas or just like go in the studio with them and just help with whatever. And so I would say I relied on the classwork of like how marketing works, but then the hands-on experience was obviously a lot different and it was more fast paced. It was like, oh, there's a new trend today. We were going to post this, but we need to adjust. And so I learned a lot more from the band directly on how they handled that kind of thing and how it's not always textbook. So how to adjust. So there was definitely some things that were more textbooks and definitely more things that were very hands-on and just needed to adjust with. And I learned a lot from them through that for sure.
This episode is sponsored by Working Order Guitars, your go-to for expert guitar repair, maintenance, and custom work in Nashville. Keep your instrument in peak condition and ready for the stage or the studio by visiting Working Order Guitars. And now back to the show. Wow, and it's fascinating that you shared that the band had a place that they were connecting with almost like a 9 to 5. They were almost like
Yeah.
treating it like this is work. How do we plan for the future? And would you say that seeing that at that stage in your career, is that like a missing piece, do you think, for a lot of artists today? Like, are they not thinking of it in the same way?
That's a good point. I would say definitely, especially with how fast-paced social media is, artists who aren't necessarily great with social media or they don't want to spend time on it, I would say to switch the mindset to make it more like a job. So scheduling time to actually do that stuff, even if it's setting aside a day and being like, okay, these hours I'm going to work on social media. Because I feel like sometimes part of the reason social media is so hard for artists is because they're like, oh, I have to constantly be thinking about this in the background. But sometimes it could be like just setting aside time where you're solely focused on that. With other things too, like it's fun to do behind the scenes stuff and things that are more natural. But if you're going to be thinking of specific ideas or like having to go somewhere to shoot content or go somewhere to shoot a music video, I think scheduling out that time is important. And I think if you're a band with multiple people, I definitely saw how important it was for them to get together so often and work on new ideas, um, and just brainstorm off of each other. And they weren't constantly just like going back and forth via text. It was like they were in an office together, brainstorming, coming up with meetings and things like that.
Wow. And that's
Yeah.
such a good point about the band factor because
Yeah.
if you're a solo artist, it's kind of like you and your vision. But when you're a band, you have multiple members and you want everyone to be bought in. You don't want it to kind of be
Yeah.
like the front
100.
man show.
Yes, 100%. So I feel like there was definitely, they had that creative space where they knew they could all come and brainstorm together.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in Nashville for that summer, like learning hands-on with a band. That really cool that you got a chance to continue working with them upon graduation. You also spent a summer in LA working with some huge names like Maroon 5. That sounds like such a whirlwind. What was like the biggest culture shock going out to LA and like what was your experience like out there?
Yeah, I also had never been to LA before I interned out there. So I lived in it's kind of funny. I lived in a hostel with 15 other people. It was a safe one. Like we had our own room and code and things like that. But I lived with a lot of different creatives too, but nobody else in the music industry besides a couple of weeks. There was a girl there that worked at a venue. But other than that, my roommates were actors, writers, um, military people, like mostly pursuing different sorts of like acting and screenwriting. So it was definitely that part of it. There was a change, just like interacting with people who I had never worked with people in film before. And then as far as the internship goes, it definitely was very, it was fast paced as well. And I worked inside of a management company that was very large. And so I got to see how a large company operated rather than a very small, like I'm in an office with a band. This time I was in an office with all of the managers, and then in front of each of the managers' office was like their assistants or the day-to-days, and then the interns were in the middle. And there was multiple interns as well. So that was my first time interacting with other interns and doing work together. And I would say the environment of LA in itself, it's a lot of people are very competitive and a lot of people are on their own path for sure and trying to get their own way, and like they forge their own path and they're focused face down heading towards that path. Rather than Nashville, there's definitely still competition and people like that, but I feel like it's more of a community and lots of people building together. In LA, it was just kind of harder to see that. I Part of it is because I wasn't as closely intertwined with a lot of the artists in LA. But I would say it was a little bit harder to make genuine connections, and you could tell who was there because they wanted to be in the industry or who was there because like they knew someone who knew someone, things like that. So it definitely felt less community driven and more goal driven.
Yeah, and that's fascinating that you were talking about even just like the corporate structure where there's like almost like an agent or a manager, admin, the admin or the executive assistant, and then the intern, where there's like multi layers, and so I can see where it's almost more defined, like people's roles might be a little more like not siloed, but a little more
Yeah.
defined as far as like what their attention was on versus working directly with a band. You can kind of wear multiple hats and see what interests you the most.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say the company I worked for, they did have like an open door policy, which was really nice. So we were always, as interns, if the door was open of a manager, like we were allowed to go in and shadow them. So I learned a ton from that because I would just go in their office and just sit there and watch them handle meetings or listen to phone calls. And so I definitely got hands on through that, just like absorbing. It was more of an absorbing internship as and less hands-on than my last one, but it did make me realize I really liked management and I liked seeing the managers work hands-on with their artist. I liked seeing everything that they were doing, but I didn't necessarily want to live in LA.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is totally fair. I feel
Yeah.
like you want to feel comfortable. But that's interesting that you said that that was kind of the moment you realized you really liked the management. Going into the internship, did you know that it would be more focused in this lane? And you were kind of like, I'm testing the waters to see if this is a path that I like? Or was this like oh, okay, I didn't know exactly what this would be. And it almost has given direction to what my future steps are going to look like?
Yeah, I definitely knew it was going to be a management internship, but I didn't know how directly I would be with all of the managers or artists, etc. So seeing them operate on such a big scale was definitely very different. But I realized I liked the management, but that a lot of people in the business weren't getting that one-on-one with artists. So it made me realize, okay, if I want to be in management, maybe a smaller company is something I'm looking for because it's more hands-on and one-on-one. And I definitely learned a lot more about management because I kind of knew what management was going into it. And I would say a lot of those expectations were kind of the same going into the internship, but just a much larger scale and being like, oh, they're involved with every aspect of the artist's life, a lot of them. And that's not every management company, but for sure the one I worked for, like they were helping with baby registries and helping with acting gigs or different TV spots and things like that. So definitely saw how involved management could be. And I loved that because I loved how you could be involved with so many aspects of their career. Because before that, I did some slight booking for a band in college and I realized I did not like booking. So that was one thing
Fair.
that I was like, okay, I'm not a great at booking, but I like a lot of details. I like being hands-on in the overall career. So that's why I wanted to try out management. And it definitely like confirmed that's what I was feeling.
Yeah, and you shared that maybe LA wasn't the place for you.
Yeah.
Are there any other like music cities that you would love to explore that you haven't yet or like spend a little time in?
And I haven't, I've only visited like New York and Chicago, some of the bigger ones for sure. And growing up in Illinois, I was familiar with Chicago, but I've never spent a ton of time there for music purposes. Same thing for New York. I'm not a huge big city person, to be honest. I think that's what the LA thing was for sure. The Nashville, I feel, has the small town feel and like everybody kind of knows everybody, and that's what I grew up in a small town, so that's what I'm used to. And I love being only 5 hours away from my family, so that was a big aspect for sure. So I could see myself staying in Nashville for like pretty full on. But I'm always open to other places if the right thing comes along, but right now Nashville's home for me.
Yeah, and it's pretty central too. Like you can
Yeah.
easily get to the other hubs, I would say, in a pretty short period of time, which
Yeah.
makes it nice.
100%. And LA is fun to visit. It's fun to spend some time there. I would say the summer was a good amount of time to spend there for sure. And then I'm like, okay, I'm too far away from family, didn't make quite great connections and community. So I knew I wanted to go back to Nashville.
Yeah, and we're so glad to have you here because
Well,
and
thank
all
you.
the value that you bring here. So I want to help just connect the dots really quickly because today you're working as a day-to-day manager
Yes.
with acts with a group. How important do you think is internships for someone who would be interested in following in similar steps? Like how important do you think that is for a future in the industry?
I think it's really important for a few different reasons. I would say one is first off to figure out what you want to do in the industry because there are so many different things in the music industry. Um, like I said, I learned quickly that I wanted to be in management, but like a smaller company. Um, and I knew I didn't really like booking. So I would say internships are a good time to kind of just learn what you like and what you don't like, or learn your strengths and weaknesses and how to work on those as well. And then also, a huge part of it is just the connections, because a lot of it is who you meet or who knows each other in the industry. And so just connecting with people or connecting with like-minded people and figuring out how you guys can build together. You never know who you're going to meet in an internship who down the road, like 5 years from now, maybe they're in a different role and you want to do something with them as well. So I would say it's very important to just figure out for yourself what you like, and then also those connections, and then thirdly, the experience. So it is good to get the experience for sure too, but I would say internships aren't always just about experience or just about something to put on your resume. You have to make it the most that you can.
Yeah. And then you can be more clear on what it is you're looking for. Like
Yes.
anyone could be like, I want to be an artist manager, but like, okay, well, what are the parts that you enjoy? Because maybe a team is looking for someone to fill X, Y, and Z, and you like
Yeah.
A, B, and C. It
100.
wouldn't be a great match.
Yes, that's totally true too, because you could learn, because management too is so broad. And so you could figure out if you're more marketing or if you want to be an overall manager or the day to day, if you want to have your own company. Those are all different things that it's hard to know until you're in it, because you can learn as much as you want in a textbook, but until you're in an internship or learning hands-on from somebody, it's hard to know what you're going to like or what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Totally. And it sounds like through all of your experience, you were able to really hone in on what you liked and all the value that you bring to a team. And you're now using all of those skills in your current day-to-day role, working as a day-to-day manager with a couple different artist acts. Would
Yeah.
love to hear like how that started for you and how you got involved.
Yeah, so it actually all started with some friends I met through Anthem Lights. So after graduation, I moved to Nashville. I worked for Anthem Lights part-time. They didn't have a full-time position, so they knew that I was always looking for something full-time. And through some mutual friends that I met through them, I found out about an opening at Showdown Management. And at the time, they just needed like an office admin person. But when applying for the job, I realized they had, going back full circle, they had 10th Avenue North on the roster. I was like, oh my gosh, this would be
Meant to
such
be.
a full circle moment. And I had met 10th Avenue North by that time because I lived with some people who worked for them as well. And so it just felt like it was all lining up. And part of the reason I feel like Showdown even interviewed me is because of my experience with Anthem Lights and the marketing that I had with them for sure. So I just applied, and through that, I got the office admin job. And then I would say about a year and a half after I started, there was some transitions in the team. And one of the major day-to-day managers left. And so I kind of filled that void, and I've been at it ever since.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, for people tuning into the show, maybe they are an independent artist where they haven't started working with the team yet, or they're trying to learn more and about all the different parts of the industry. I'm so excited. You're actually the first artist manager that I got to bring on the show, which
I'm
is
so
super
honored.
exciting. I'm so honored. But I would love for you to share with our listeners, like, just a little bit about what your day to day looks like. I know you said you like working on a smaller team because you're more hands on. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Another reason I love management is because every day can be different. You never really know what's going to happen. So, being in the day to day role, my hands are basically on all aspects of our artist career. So, I'm the middle person between booking, I'm the middle person between labels, distribution, admin deals, etc. So, I get all the data, all the information comes through me before we go elsewhere. So I help with song turn in and song registrations, constantly helping my team like brainstorm marketing ideas, release plans, release schedules, making sure that they're getting money because they do have a lot of them have success in film and TV sync placements as well. So it's like helping, we have other teams that handle those licenses, but it's helping find those placements, making sure that all the income is coming in correctly, and just basically the middle person for all these different teams, which is fun because then I get to be in all aspects of their career and help see the bigger picture as well.
Is it hard sometimes being the buffer person between like the artist or the act and the rest of the industry? Like Does it ever get tough where you find yourself in like tough conversations or having to kind of be the no person, or have you found you've been able to step into that pretty
Yeah,
easily?
sometimes it is tough because I never want my artist to be the person who has to have that tough conversation. And our artists are very much hands-on and with their careers. And so a lot of the times they'll be like, "Oh, I don't want to like example. I'll just use an example for like when songs are written and splits are being figured out. Typically, splits are kind of already worked out ahead of time with the people that they're working with constantly. They kind of already know what it's going to look like. But if there's a new person in the room, or maybe it's somebody from a different city coming in where they're not like used to what our standard is, um, sometimes our artists will have those conversations and it doesn't go over well. And they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going back and forth with so and so about this." I'm like, "Let me step in as the manager. Let me be the bad cop." And sometimes that is hard because I'm like, I do care. I don't want to be like the mean manager either, but I definitely have learned to be more stern and to stick up for my artists. And there's definitely a different side of me that's like, "Oh, this needs to happen for my artists," and I'll step up and say what needs to happen so that they can step back and focus on the creative and the managers can handle all the splits and the deals and all the legal stuff.
Yeah, you're kind of like Mama Bear coming out. Like
Yeah.
these are mine, and I'm taking care of them.
Exactly, exactly. I don't want them to have to focus on all the negative talk about splits and stuff like, and sometimes they do, obviously, because it's also a relationship they have with other writers or artists. But if there's ever a time where it feels like, "Oh, this might be a bigger conversation," like I like to be the one to step in to be like, "Hey, can I talk to somebody on their team instead?" So,
Yeah, and that's such a it helps the artist not feel so alone, like they have someone looking out for them or having their back in what is
yeah.
hopefully ultimately a great creative collaboration, just helping to
Yes.
get all the pieces worked out.
Yes, exactly. All the boring stuff, Let them
Yeah.
make the music.
And so speaking of like getting to be hands-on and you've now been with Showdown a handful of years. Have there
Yes.
been any fun either events or experiences or things that you've gotten to be a part of that you were like, this was so cool. I couldn't have never imagined doing this before.
Yeah, man, there's been a few, honestly. I would say funny, I always talk about my first week at Showdown. One of our artists had a number one country song that he was a writer on. And so the first week I was at a number one country music party. I was like, "Man, is this what my life is going to be like all the time? Just number one parties?" And so I always joke with that was like my first week onboarding was like going to a number one country thing, which is ironic because none of our artists really write country music anymore. So it was like that one, and then haven't had one since. But I would say also just for example, Sam Tinnesz right now, he's out on the road with the Savannah Bananas. He got to perform with them at Yankee Stadium, which that was super cool. He was like the surprise guest. We've got to put on some fun shows, including one called Samsonez and Friends, which involves some of our other artists as well, like UNSECRET. And that all raises money for People Loving Nashville, which was an organization that I got familiar with in college. So that's very much full circle for me as well. Just a super special night. So we've done that once and we're actually have another one coming up soon for that. So just special events like that. They've performed at a soccer game in Minnesota, which was super random and fun. So I would say the most random things have been the most fun because it's like never know what to expect. Yes.
Speaking of the Savannah Bananas, that is such
Yeah.
a cool outside of the box partnership. Like you wouldn't traditionally maybe think of those two things together in that way. How did that
100%.
start? Was that like a formal pitch? Like would love to hear a little more.
Yes. So I had always been like aware of them and kind of like a fan of what they've been doing. And last year is when it seemed like every game they were bringing out a special guest. And one of their guests who they brought out was Fitz and the Tantrum. Um, and Fits in the Tantrums, and we like have I so they brought out Fits in the Tantrum, and their manager is somebody who I worked with in LA.
Hmm.
And so I just reached out and I was like, hey, saw that they did this. Do you have a contact by chance? So luckily, I was able to get a contact for him, and then I just like cold emailed and pitched for Sam. And Sam does have a lot of sports anthems, especially his song Legends Are Made has been used a lot for baseball walkouts. So they were already kind of familiar with his music, and they had the idea to bring him out to Yankee Stadium because they really wanted to. It was 9/11 weekend, and they wanted to represent and they wanted to recognize a bunch of the firefighters and first responders who had served during 9/11. And so they thought Sam's song Legends Are Made would pair well with that. So they brought him out and he performed for the firefighters team. And it was the first time the firefighters team had a special guest, and Sam was that special guest. And so that was last year in September. And then I would say at the end of the year, the owner of the team, Jesse, just like posted something on social media hinting at like them wanting some original music or hinting at something with music. And Sam just messaged him about it and was like, hey, if you ever need someone, Jesse ended up calling Sam. It's like, I actually have a bigger idea. Why don't you come be the official singer for the firefighters next year? So it just happened. It just happened like that. And we signed on. And now Sam is going to be performing at every firefighter's home game this season.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
First off, congratulations on
Thank you.
what a cool like experience and like a cool partnership. The Savannah Bananas have definitely been like pushing the boundaries when it comes to like the entertainment world, and
100%.
they've
Yes.
just been taking over. They were at Nissan Stadium, I think this past summer.
Yeah.
Um and they like sold out like every seat, and they built the diamond right on the field, and so cool to be
Crazy.
involved with them.
Yeah, it's so cool. We're learning a lot about their business too, and just like how fans first really does make a difference. And so we're taking that into even just concerts and stuff, like how important is it for the fans to be like the front person, especially even like there's 4 million people on the waiting list for the Savannah Bananas. So they have now launched their own secondary ticket market. So instead of like all these tickets going for like $300, they now have their own website where if you want to sell back your ticket, you go and you still get a ticket for $30 to $60. That's their price. And so like imagine if Ticketmaster did that or something where it's like, oh, you can't get tickets and then the resell is $1,000. It's
Yeah.
like, no, still make it fans first, still make it to where like the resell is the price that you if you would have got it when they went on sale.
And how powerful, like even a group looking at your group, how established you are, you're still learning from all the other facets of entertainment.
Oh,
Like you can
100%.
still learn, yeah, what other groups are doing. Your story about the Savannah Bananas, actually, I took two things away from that. The first was how important relationships are that
Mhm.
you build along the way. So, in your personal journey, when you were out in LA or working with different groups of people, you like keeping in touch and being able to keep those relationships front and center.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I took away from that story was like your artist Sam is still very involved in like finding opportunities for himself, while you and your group obviously are there to help as well and like help brainstorm. Like it's like a partnership between the two of you.
Yeah, 100%. We definitely, and that's part of another reason why I like working for a smaller company is because it's hands-on. We're having phone calls daily, we're having meetings weekly, and just our artists bring a ton of new ideas, and it's just helping them bring those ideas to life, because they are such busy people, especially just Sam and UNSECRET and Matt Bronleewe. They have a million projects going on at once. And so it's helping them focus like, okay, here's the ideas that you have. how can I take some of that stuff off your plate to actually make it happen? So it's fun to brainstorm with them and figure out like ways we can make those goals happen.
And it also sounds like you're trying to personalize each artist's journey.
Yeah,
Sam, who might have a more sync background or like the anthem song catalog, finding collaborations where he gets to shine with like a
yeah.
sports team sounds like such a cool part, like a cool way to collaborate. Versus Unsecret might have a different artist journey in the way that they are developing their projects. So it sounds like trying to find things that really fit the artist and things that interest them.
And it's too learning as like sometimes we'll get random reach outs about certain things and figuring out, okay, which artist in our roster will fit best for this opportunity, because we never want to take away an opportunity for somebody and we want to be fair across our board. But it's finding, okay, maybe this thing will be best for Sam because it's sports, but if a production thing comes in, it's best for like Unsecret. Or if like a write comes in, like figuring out the right person to put with those. But luckily too, like our producer Matt Bronleewe and Sam work really well together, so it's fun to be able to put them in the same rooms a lot of the time too. And then Tori has our Christian side of it, so when things come in for that, it's fun to plug her into that world as well.
Speaking from a perspective of maybe an independent artist or a songwriter or a producer,
Yeah,
as they're starting to build their catalog and look for new opportunities, I hear a ton from like the indie groups of like, oh, if only I had an artist manager, if only I had a manager that could, XYZ.
yeah.
Hearing from someone in your position, like, when is the right time that someone should really be thinking about a manager?
Yeah, I honestly I take this from Sam because he always tells this to other people. It's when you feel like you can't handle it on your own anymore, where you feel like things are falling through the cracks. So if you feel like, oh, you really are dropping the ball on things and you just can't do it, is when maybe you should look for a team. But definitely try to handle all those things and see how it feels. Because I do think a lot of the times artists are like, oh, I'm putting out music, I need a manager right away. And it's not always like that. Um, there's a lot that you can handle as you're getting started. And then when you feel like you want to give up a percentage of your earnings or whatever for a manager, is like when you feel like you've maybe like hit a roadblock and you can't do it anymore, or you feel like things are falling through the cracks. Sometimes it's also just good to meet with managers and brainstorm and see like, okay, these, because we've had artists reach out to us where we're like, okay, it's not the right fit, but we'll help connect them to people who can help with certain aspects, because maybe they're actually not looking for management, maybe they're looking for booking. So it's like,
Mm.
oh, okay, you want a ton more shows. Maybe you just need a booking agent. Oh, you want to write with a ton of people. Maybe you just need to go make some more connections with some other producers and songwriters first. Or, oh, you need all of your songs registered and all this. Maybe you just need an admin partner. And if you want all of those things, then maybe it's best that you get a manager that's the middle person for all of it. So I would say it's definitely figuring out your goals and figuring out what's the thing where you feel like you can't handle it on your own anymore.
And I love that you broke down like what really is the thing that you need the most help
Yeah,
with because like you said, if you have a handle on maybe booking your shows, but it's just like getting everything registered, well, that's a different type of deal, a different type of
yeah,
collaboration than someone covering all the pieces. And also, I imagine as an artist, it's hard to let up a little control knowing that now this person's maybe speaking or advocating on your behalf. It's like, how do you, um, like becoming comfortable with that and knowing that the reason I'm comfortable with that is because I'm at a point where I can't do it all on my own anymore.
yeah, 100%. Or, and it's also just depends on how you're wired. Like some artists are very much just the creative. And when they get into the weeds with business, like they don't want to deal with it and they would rather just immediately sign with management. And that's totally understandable too. Like if you're like, no, the creative is the only thing I want to focus on, then that's another conversation too. But there are other artists who want to have a handle on their business and really want to grow it themselves before taking it elsewhere. And I respect that decision as well. So, kind of just how much you want to let up. of your own business as well. That's another thing to really think about before going to management, I feel.
Quick question, because I want to get back to what you just said about
Yeah.
like the business piece. Um, you mentioned that sometimes groups have reached out to you.
Hmm.
Do you find that like finding the best manager comes from reaching out and being proactive as an artist or a songwriter or an act looking for a manager? Or do you find that like it's best when those management companies are the ones reaching out, right? Because it's kind of like who kind of gets the pot,
Yeah.
starts the boil, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it could work both ways, to be honest. And being in a day-to-day management role, I'm not the one to make those decisions necessarily, but I am in all of the conversations. And my boss, being at a small company, he really respects my opinion, or if I bring someone to him. Um, I would say it's building a relationship with somebody first. So if it is a manager that you really respect and you were like, I really want them to manage me, don't just cold email and be like, hey, we're looking out for management. I would say build a relationship there first because you have to know if you're going to work well together too and the personalities there. But it's also don't wait until you're big enough to where managers are like, you're going to say, I'm going to wait until things blow up and managers will come to me because that's not always the case either. So I feel like it's just letting things, I would say be proactive for sure after things. But if managers are coming after you, don't turn them down. Have conversations as well.
Great advice. And honestly, I think that's like such a black box or a mystery for people. Like,
Yeah.
when do you look for a team? When do you find things? And this kind of relates to what you were just saying around like business, because I feel like for so many artists, like music is maybe the thing that they got interested in, and that's what brought them here. But now it's kind of building a brand and building your business as a whole. So it incorporates music. Maybe that's a large part of it, but it's also like these other partnerships with other organizations, etc. Like, would you say that that's been a change in the music industry that you've seen over your time and in your career, that like it's expanding beyond just the music function for a lot of your acts?
Yeah, for sure. It's constantly changing, like the industry, like you were saying. And so it's knowing how those changes will affect your music because unfortunately, it's not just, oh, if you put out a great album, everybody's going to hear it. You have to think about the streaming now. And streaming used to not always be the thing, it used to be CDs. Or figuring out, oh, now there's a new social media platform. And yes, sometimes it's overwhelming, or you don't want to think about that you have to be marketing your stuff on social media. But in today's world, that's just how it is, unfortunately, for some artists who hate social media. But it's also a great opportunity for some other artists who thought they would never be able to get out their music independently. Now is their time to take the reins and try things out. And so I would say definitely having a good grasp on the business helps because then it also helps you figure out goals, helps you go into meetings knowing if things are a bad deal, and then just being ready to adjust when times have changed because streaming's changing, sync's changing, social media is changing. So, yes, focus on the great music, but then also you want people to hear it. So, figuring out the business side is still important.
And it's
Yeah.
almost like this is the new standard. Like,
Yeah.
this is what it means to do music. It means
Yeah.
having your pulse on X, Y, and Z.
100%. And part of that too is so if something does take off, you know how to collect on it and you know how to make a career out of it. And so making sure songs are registered, making sure you have admin in place or that the splits of the song is worked out with your songwriter. So a song's not taking off and you're like, oh, we never talked about who should own the master or things like that. So making sure that you have all that. So if things do take off, you don't have to backtrack or figure out that you're missing all these pieces.
Is that like the one suggestion you would leave listeners with? Like, make sure the admin or like the splits things is like crystal clear.
I would say, yeah, part of it for sure. I would definitely like have open conversations with your co-writers ahead of time because you never want to have to like backtrack on things just because something is being successful.
Great point.
Yes.
Especially in today's age where things can blow up so quickly.
Yes.
And I want to spend just a couple minutes also just digging into anyone tuning in today that might be interested in becoming a manager or going down this path of getting more in this field.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'm curious, like in your experience, what do you think are really important, either characteristics, personality characteristics, or skills, or things that really help a manager to shine? And that, like, these are the things that make someone a really good manager.
Yeah, I would say being flexible for sure is the first thing because you never know what the day is going to look like, or you never know what things are going to be thrown at you. People kind of joke that management is like a 24/7 job because your artist can always be calling you. Set those boundaries for sure, but always being willing to be flexible when things come up because if there's an issue happening, the first person or the first team they're going to reach out to is management. So being flexible, and then with that, also just learning to be positive about things but stern. There's like, there can be a fine line there. And so knowing when to stick up your artist, but not being so rude where you're burning bridges. And so just being willing to take everything with a grain of salt and just really focusing on things for the best of your artist. So I would say those are some of the top things I look for when we're talking with interns or people who are interested in management.
Yeah, and where would you recommend people look for internships? Because you were able to find both from advocating for yourself and finding
Yeah,
these really great experiences. Where would you recommend someone look for things like that?
there's a few different things. I mean, I would say definitely if there's a company or a band or a person that you really look up to, just going and asking for it. You never know what will come from it because that's also how I got my internship in LA is I just did a cold email and emailed them. So you never know. Sometimes if even if they don't have forms online, just start there. But I also looked before those internships, I looked a lot online, even just like Indeed or different job listing sites sometimes have internships. And then also colleges have a lot of internship fairs. So a lot of the times our interns come from like Belmont's internship fair. So I would say definitely look at college internships fairs. We've even had some people sneak through. They're like, hey, I saw the internship fair. I'm technically not a student, but I saw that your company was there. And so that's happened too, where even if you're not a student, like looking around to different fairs or opportunities online or just reaching out to companies that you really admire.
And I love your grassroots approach of like, I want to work with your group. Are you guys looking for help? Like, hey, you
Yeah,
never know what someone's going to say, you know?
exactly. I would have never imagined that would have actually worked, but it did. So you
That's
never
great.
know.
Is it
Yes.
hard to turn off like the manager brain? Like if you're out and about, do you feel like you're constantly like thinking about it, or do you feel like I've been able to develop a work-life balance?
It's different every day for sure. I would say that I've gotten to a place where like our clients especially know when if I'm out of like if I'm spending time with my family or if I'm on vacation, they know I need more space or I might be slower to respond to things. But with that, I feel like my brain's always thinking about it because we are such close. It's kind of they're kind of like family to me and they're friends. And so we are constantly talking about things even outside of work. So it kind of blurs the lines. But that's also part of what management is when you have a good relationship with your clients. It's your life's blend together even outside of business. And so I know though when it's time to set aside completely thinking about business um, when I need to.
And great advice for anyone listening. Managers will become part of your life outside of just the career part too. So
Yeah.
you want to make sure you have a great personality match.
Yes, that's another reason, just like going back to when you're finding management. Don't just find the biggest, baddest manager because they're cool and you think their roster's cool. You want to be able to connect with them personally as well.
And then like a slightly selfish question, I'm just curious, like have you heard much about like the songwriter management? I feel like that's been growing more in Nashville.
Yeah, a little bit. And our company used to work with a lot more songwriters and producers. And we technically, so Matt Bronleewe is a producer songwriter, and then UNSECRET's like a producer songwriter, and then Sam's also a songwriter outside of his artistry, and so is Tori. So we definitely have that too. And I think it is. definitely important as much as it is for artists because songwriters still have to fight for their splits or make sure songs are registered. Um, but it's going back to what are your goals with it when you want management. So it's looking at, okay, I don't know how to register my songs. Do I need somebody to do that for me? Or is it something that I just need to learn from somebody, like take a day and learn it? Or like finding admins to make sure you're always getting your publishing royalties, or are you looking for a team to grow more connections? You're like, I need more rights. I need someone to handle my whole schedule. I need someone to handle all of it. That's a different conversation too. But there's definitely a lot of management for songwriters to be had as well.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
of that growing, or at
Yeah.
least talk of that growing. And it's interesting to hear like that does exist and it's definitely
A hundred
part
percent.
of the world.
Yes, yes, 100%. Because I mean, songwriters are constantly also in it as well, even though you might not be brainstorming your next big album of just yourself. You're still working on those songs. You're working with a lot more people typically, and you have your hands in a lot more things. So it's a lot of details to keep up with.
Are there any like resources that you recommend people checking out, like books or websites or organizations that you think are really helpful for anyone
Yeah.
who's interested in just learning more of like either how to advocate for themselves or if they're interested in the field?
That is a good question. I would say one to know for songwriters is just look into the MLC, as far as like royalties go and collection. That is one company to make sure that you're registered with if you don't have admin in any other source. And then as far as like, I would say listen to podcasts for sure and some books. I'm currently reading one. I haven't like I've only on the first chapter. So if it's wrong, it's not my fault.
You're like, I don't know.
Yes. I think it's 21 Hit Wonder by Sam Hollander, who is an incredibly successful songwriter. And so if you're interested in more just like stories about songwriting, um, he's had at least 21 hits. But he's worked with everybody from like Boys Like Girls, Panic at the Disco, Fits in the Tantrum, etc. And so I've started reading that, and it tells a lot about his stories and how he got started as a songwriter. So I would say I love books of people actually telling their stories because I feel like I learn more from that than textbooks of being things like, here's how it's done. I like hearing people's stories and how everybody's journey is different, but sometimes you could pick stuff out of that, like, oh, I could see myself doing it that way, or oh, that gives me courage to do this. So that's one book I'm currently reading.
I love it. And great point about like reading from the testimonials and like at the end of the day, music is songwriting too. So it's like definitely understandable why you connect so deeply with the storytelling side. And I
Yeah,
haven't heard of the book, The 21 Hit Wonders. I'll need to
yeah,
look into that.
yeah. I'm like, is it 21? I'm pretty positive it is. So I will double
I
check
take your word for it.
that.
Oh my gosh. Well, Emily, this has been so fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I had a blast. I've been looking forward to this for a while now, and every time I have a guest on the show, I always close with the same final question, which is, what is one thing you would tell your younger self?
I would say to just not be afraid to ask for things and be confident in it. So, going back to the whole thing about me asking for the internships, my younger self would have never believed it. So, and just go into confidence and believe that you're meant to be in the rooms that you're in.
I love that. And don't be afraid to get in line and drag your sister and make her be the
Exactly.
fangirl.
Make your sister be the fangirl. That's it.
Two part.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, Emily, if people are interested in either keeping up to date with you or all the exciting work coming out of Showdown or Tinman, where can people find you and follow along online?
Yeah, my socials are just my name, so Emily Kaiser 5. And then as far as social media goes for the companies, it's Showdown Management or Showdown MGMT, and then Tinman Entertainment. And all of our artists are tagged on there.
And people, if you're a fan of the Savannah Bananas, keep your eyes peeled for the Firemen and Sam's future work with them. That'll be so cool. And as always, if this is your first time tuning into the So Rude podcast, make sure to follow along on whatever platform you're listening to the show on, whether that's Apple Podcast or Spotify. Our video version of this interview is going to be available on YouTube, so make sure to check us out there. By you supporting the show, it allows us to bring on the fantastic guests like Emily, who are so gracious to come on and share their expertise and their experience with us, so that way each episode we can take something away. If you're interested in following along on social media, you can find us sorude.podcast on Instagram and TikTok. And as always, have a fantastic day and chat again soon. Bye now. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with every episode. See you next time.